Well, hello there, Vlad here. Welcome to my studio. I don't know why I'm finger snapping, but I guess I'm doing it now. Two very popular newcomers, so to speak, and I'm saying popular because both of the videos I made separately of these links in the description, by the way, have been super popular. People have been really interested in these, and it just made a lot of sense to compare the two. Inputs and outputs wise, these are slightly different. Well, obviously there's input for both. There's an effects loop on the amp core, which Solid Studio Mark II doesn't have. But then again, on the Solid Studio, there's a through out as well. So basically you're bypassing everything and you can go straight into your amp, for example, and then use this to send a kind of gap stimulated and amp stimulated signal to the front of the house, for example. And even though there's two outputs, I'm only using just one because the Amp-Core Studio doesn't do stereo. So for the purpose of this comparison, I'm going to keep everything in mono. Both of these units also have USB-C out that you can use to install updates. And there's a desktop editor for both of these. And while Amp-Core Studio actually has a MIDI port here, the Solid Studio Mark II does MIDI just via USB-C. Both of the units have the headphones out over here, and Solid Studio Mark II has an aux in as well. What I like about both user interfaces is this somewhat big display that gives you a lot of information of what's going on, and it just looks good, which always helps. And you operate the Amp-Core Studio by using the foot switch and 3 controls over here. And obviously there's 2 foot switches here on the Solid Studio Mark II. And 4 buttons that allow you to trigger different sections of your signal chain. So what I want to do in this video is just check out some of the sounds and see how they compare right out of the box. And later I'll also share my experiences using the Amp-Core Studio in a live setting, playing with a band that is using this as the centerpiece. As of shooting this video, I haven't been able to try out the Solid Studio Mark II as a pedal platform in a live setting, that is. The Amp-Core Studio comes with 20 different presets, and within each of the presets, you can actually also have 3 different scenes. On the Solid Studio, you get 20 presets ranging from guitar amplifiers to bass amplifiers, to acoustic guitar IRs as well. So I wouldn't say you can directly compare the two, but the idea here is to provide you all the information you need to decide which one might suit you better. Depending on the preset you have on Amp-Core Studio, you access that particular amp's settings over here. You can trigger the gain, tone, level. Then if you click here, you can even adjust the microphone position, stuff like that. There's an EQ, there's a level control as well, and you can even tweak the send and return settings. There's a noise gate as well. And when you're playing live with the Amp-Core Studio, you basically can have 3 different presets per kind of preset slot, so to speak, and you can have different amplifiers there that you can access by, well, clicking this foot switch over here. Solid Studio Mark II does it a bit differently because we can both change the amplifier and tweak that quite a lot. There's a bunch of different settings that you can do. Then there's the IR section as well. And then there's an EQ and like a very comprehensive EQ. And you can add some ambient stuff here as well. There's a few different kind of, well, ambient effects. But I know that all of you just want to hear this thing and compare how they sound. So I'm doing just that. I'll try to stick to like similar amplifiers on both of these. And greetings from the editing desk. As I was editing the video and especially listening to the playing clips I recorded for this video, I realized that the comparison wouldn't be fair because the Amp-Core Studio ships with different impulse responses. At least it feels like it ships with different impulse responses than the Solid Studio Mark II, and therefore the comparison wouldn't be fair. So what I decided to do is to first of all listen to some of the preset clips that these both units ship with, but then I also want to see how close I can make this unit and the Solid Studio Mark II sound to each other by uploading exactly the same impulse response into this thing. So we're going to listen to some of the preset clips, and then we're going to hear the comparison clips between the Solid Studio Mark II and Amp-Core Studio with exactly the same worship tutorials provided 2x12 Vox cabinet that I uploaded into both devices. All of the EQs and any kind of post-processing, reverbs, anything like that, all of that has been disabled. Just the raw tone of both of these, or like raw amp modeling through exactly the same IR. Listening for both the presets first and then kind of comparing these on a more even playing field, if you will, that just made sense to me. And I'm actually splitting the signal from my Jet JS400 into a volume pedal that has two different outputs. So both of the takes are exactly the same, just running through different amp solutions, so to speak. So let's start with a Vox AC30. But as you can tell, it's kind of difficult to find exactly the same stuff, but original Plexi 59, breakup Plexi. Let's see how close these two get. Alright, so what are my experiences with both of these units? First of all, I have to mention that both are well built, they feel solid, no pun intended by the way, but both units feel well constructed. I had no trouble using the Amco Studio Live as well. I never feared like stepping on it and anything like that. It's well built, and same goes for the Solid Studio Mark II. And if I would have to pick one of these two, like build quality wise, this is like a tank. You will not break it no matter how much you're going to step on it. This also feels good, but there's a difference between the build quality. That is, as I mentioned, both units do support MIDI, but there's a bit of difference where this does MIDI via this port over here, and Solid Studio Mark II does it via USB-C instead. My personal experience of using the Amco Studio Live as well, like kind of putting drive pedals through it, it works well, but I think the Solid Studio Mark II has way more headroom, and that was very apparent in my Solid Studio Mark II demo where I ran like a Rev G3 into this, and this is one of the first modular units that was able to handle that. Whereas with Amco Studio, I feel you need to be a bit more aware of kind of gain you're putting into the pedal. It obviously depends on the amp simulation you're using as well. I felt the Solid Studio Mark II gave me just more headroom to play with, and even high gain pedals like Rev G3 worked flawlessly with this one. With this one, you have to be a bit more cautious of how much gain you're putting into the pedal. Then, on the other hand, this thing has an effects loop, and if you like to use effects loop for your modulation effects and ambient effects and such, yeah, it has effects loop right over here. It has MIDI via cable, and it actually ships with the adapters as well. So if you're into that, this might be a better choice. As of shooting of this video, both of the units are fairly new, so you can expect a lot of updates, adding more stuff to these things, especially Solid Studio Mark II feels a bit limited right now, or like it feels a bit incomplete as of now. Whereas Amco Studio has more amps and stuff going on, but it's also a bit more simple than the Solid Studio, which does a bit more. But there's more stuff in this as of shooting of this video at least. And based on my personal experiences using the Amco Live as my centerpiece of my pedal board, it works really well. You just have to be a little bit conscious with the kind of gain you're putting into the pedal, but that's about it. Otherwise, it sounded great, needed a little bit of EQ, which you can do from the pedal, and I let the mixing engineer do the rest. And listening back to the live stream with it from our service, it sounded really good. But again, just be mindful of how much gain you're putting into it. Whereas with Solid Studio Mark II, I love the promise, I love the stuff that's already here, I love the user interface, it's really good. Somehow it just made a lot of sense to me at least. And again, I'm going to mention the extra headroom this has. Then again, as of shooting this video, it has way less stuff going on. There's fewer amplifiers, there's less ambient effects or anything like that available, but those will come by updates later. When? I don't know yet. So I think my conclusion is that if you want to have something fun, kind of right out of the box with some good sounding presets, I would probably go with Amco Studio, because it's just a lot of fun. Just grab a preset and have a jam. That's it. Super simple. All the presets sounds good. And if you're a more serious tweaker, if you will, and want to, tweak things like, let's say, amplifier, want to swap like power tubes on your amplifier modeling as well, you can do that with the Solid Studio Mark II, and it's a bit more professional feeling unit, if you will. And me saying that doesn't necessarily mean it's better, it's just it does stuff a bit differently than the Amco Studio. But for me personally, I find the Solid Studio Mark II as the kind of centerpiece of my pedal board. And I can have the amplifier and dual IRs going on over here. I can have a bit of ambience, and then I can pair all of this with a couple of my favorite pedals. No effects loop though, which adds a twist to all of this. Whereas Amco Studio has the effects loop, but I love the headroom on the Solid Studio a bit more. So if I had to choose between the two, I would go for the Solid Studio just because it suits my needs, but it doesn't mean that this is a bad choice or that you have to choose using the same arguments I did. Hopefully this video gave you some answers on questions you might have had between these two units. And if there's something that I missed, be sure to ask those questions down below in the comment section. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. Affiliate links to get either of these units in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching. I shall see you next time.